Welcome into the His and Hers podcast. I'm Zach Bennett alongside my sister Paige. And today we have a wonderful episode for you, continuing our division previews. And today we're covering the NFC South. Probably one of the more difficult divisions to read. A lot of factors going on with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, New Orleans Saints, Carolina Panthers, and Atlanta Falcons. We discuss again their ceilings and their floors, playoff potential, where they'll finish in the division, all here on this episode of His and Hers. All right, Paige, this division has had its fair share of drama within all four teams. But why don't you give us a preview of where they've stacked up previously?
Yeah, so in 2015, the Carolina Panthers won the division. They lost in the Super Bowl that year to the Broncos. The next year, the Atlanta Falcons take it, and then they again lost in the Super Bowl to Tom Brady and the Patriots. The next 4 years after that, it went to the New Orleans Saints. Just a fun fact, they had lost 2 of their divisional playoff games against the Vikings in those 2 years. But I think the funnest fact is that the New Orleans Saints in 2020 won the division, but then lost to the Buccaneers in the playoffs 30-20. And that's when Tom Brady and the Buccaneers went on to win the Super Bowl. And then last year in 2021, Tampa Bay Buccaneers took it, and then they lost in the divisional playoffs to the Rams 27-30. So obviously with a team that has Tom Brady, obviously there's been a lot of talk this offseason. Tom Brady announced his retirement from the NFL, and then a few short weeks later turned it around and announced that he was not retiring from the NFL. This has been talked about back and forth by every single sports analyst in the country, and any sports fan, I think, has had a conversation about this. But it's been interesting to see the development of all of it, especially with Tom Brady missing 11 days of preseason and saying he was on vacation with his family, a lot of things up in the air there. And then him coming back, love the quote where he just said, I'm just busy. Like, I just have a lot of things to do. And so it's interesting to kind of see the mindset that Tom Brady has compared to how he has been in the past. But with all of that circling around, Zach, what's your take on this division? Who do you have coming in last place?
Ooh, I think it's a pretty good read that the chances are the Falcons end up in last place.
What? No, that's a hot take. Hottest take in football.
It's boiling. I think, they have it's just kind of an awkward, like a team that's in an awkward spot. They have Arthur Smith going into his second year. And when you're going into your second year, the last thing you want to do is trend downwards. And last year they were semi-competitive, at least in terms that they beat the teams that they were supposed to beat and lost the teams that everyone expected them to lose to. And most of the time we're competitive in those games. They got blown out by the Bucs, by the Saints. And so, the Patriots, I remember on Thursday or Monday Night Football, was a primetime game, got blown out there too. So, they go into the season, they have Desmond Ridder that they drafted, but they're going to start with Marcus Mariota, the journeyman, second overall pick to the Tennessee Titans, got supplanted by Ryan Tannehill, spent the last 2 seasons with the Las Vegas Raiders, played sparingly in kind of like situational football, and now is, here to make his last attempt at being a starting quarterback. Problem is the supporting cast isn't all that great. I think the Kyle Pitts situation, he's an intriguing prospect. He's more of a wide receiver than a tight end. I think you'll see some big games and big plays from him. But at the end of the day, I think by the end of the year, the last, in 4 or 5 games in the season when they start 1-4, you'll see Desmond Ridder get a lot of action and they'll see what they have in him before they enter into a high draft pick going into the 2023 draft.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the Falcons that you mentioned, Pitts and Drake Landon, I also think that obviously we've got Cordero Patterson, who kind of had a surprise breakout last year. So I think we'll see some good plays from them. The offense is going to run through them, but nothing that's going to be insane. I do think my hot take on all of this, the only exciting thing that I have happening for the Falcons this season, I do think Drake Landon is going to be the offensive rookie of the year. So the Falcons can look forward to that being their claim to fame throughout this season. I think that we can look at a solid 3-14 season from these Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, and obviously with the different quarterbacks, it was kind of end of an era by trading Matt Ryan to the Indianapolis Colts. And so, there are a lot of fun pieces. You mentioned Cordarrelle Patterson. I think there'll be some, big plays. Like I said, I think Kyle Pitts will have a really big year. I think he'll finish, over 1,000 receiving yards like he did last year, hopefully more than one touchdown like he did last year. And you'll see that you have kind of a cornerstone, but they just need a lot more cornerstones, because sitting here right now, I'm not going to claim and be a Atlanta Falcons fan by any means, but I can't name one person on the defense. I'm just trying to sit here and think. I don't think there's anyone on the defense that is even recognizable. And on their offense, it's getting pretty slim. So, when you had Matt Ryan, aging quarterback, you wanted to compete. You wanted to sign high-priced vets because he's an aging quarterback who was an MVP of the league. But now they're kind of tearing it down. They realize they got to restart, and restarting means, not tanking, but losing a lot so that you can get one of the high Bryce Youngs of next year's draft. Because as much as you may believe in Desmond Ridder, there's not a lot of people that believe he's a franchise guy. But hey, I think by the end of this year, you'll be able to get your answer through the last 10 to 15 games that he plays, because I really don't think Marcus Mariota is going to be in for very long.
No, I agree. And honestly, with the draft class coming up, I just don't know if I think that's honestly where the Falcons are looking, is let's just look to how we're going to rebuild.
Yeah. Yeah. So in my mind, I have a team that I'm going to be putting in third place, but I'm going to ask you who you have in third place.
I have got the Panthers in third place.
We disagree.
Oh, you got the Saints in third place, or you got the Bucs in third place?
No, not the Bucs. But explain. Third place, you got the Panthers. I don't disagree with you. Why? I just have a different opinion on it.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is I think that a lot of people are sleeping on the Saints a little bit. And I'm kind of bought into the Saints a little bit this year. But from the Panthers perspective, I honestly, after last year, everybody, I mean, it was pretty predictable that the Sam Darnold experiment was not going to go well. And so
they started 4-0 or 3-0. I think it's 3-0.
They did, and everyone was like, "Wait, the Panthers are hot!" Yeah. And then finishing off 5-12, so it was exciting start for them.
People failed to realize that 2 of their first 3 games were against the Jets and then the Texans.
Yeah, I don't understand. I was really honestly confused by the Baker Mayfield situation this offseason. I didn't think that it was going to take him so long to get picked up by someone. And I thought that the whole exit from the Browns was just kind of weird in and of itself. But I think that we can expect a lot of awesome play out of the Panthers, because I think that Baker Mayfield is kind of like his redemption year, right? Like he just got done dirty by the team that we're supposed to be building completely around him. I mean, every single person who watches an NFL game can tell you about the Baker Mayfield commercials in a Browns uniform in their stadium. And so it's interesting how to like switch from that when it was so bought into like, this is our guy, and they were just putting him on everything to be the face of the Browns. So I think it's going to be really fun. I'm super excited that we're going to see him going against his old team week 1. I think that if he's able to go in there and beat the Browns, we're just going to have some amazing content from him, his little one-liners post show. But I think that they're going to have a good year. I just think that they're going to lose to the Saints and to the Bucs. So I think they're still going to have a winning season. I'm putting them right about 10-7 wins, but I do think that they're going to fall to 3rd in the division.
Interesting. Because I viewed a lot of the same way. I think Christian McCaffrey's due for a healthy year. If he gets injured most of the year again, it's kind of a career that's spiraling downward. But I think he's due to be healthy. I think Baker Mayfield is also going to be healthy this year. And the last time he played a full healthy season, he was, a couple possession away from beating the Chiefs in Arrowhead in the second round of the playoffs. So I don't know what happened there. I don't know where the relationship soured, but it soured pretty quickly for them to bring in, to the team and trade away Baker Mayfield. So I think Baker Mayfield's going to have a really good season. And I really like the pieces that they have. DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson on the offense with Chris McCaffrey and Baker Mayfield running the show. I know they lost on the defense. They lost Hassan Reddick. Their defensive end had the most sacks last year. But I think as a whole, that defense still played really well. They still have Stephon Gilmore in the secondary to kind of cover up. And anytime you have a good secondary, help make your defensive line look better because they can, cover a little bit better as well. So I actually have the Panthers finishing second in the division. I do think it's going to be kind of a strong redemption arc for Baker Mayfield. And with the NFC being on the lower end of talent comparatively to the AFC, I think there's a good chance that they'll be able to, in Matt Rule's third season, make the playoffs and make that jump that they've been wanting to the last couple years under his stewardship. So I'm actually buying the Panthers. I'm buying what they're selling, and I think they have a good chance. And I honestly think if you look at the odds, they're 9-1 to win the division. I like that bet just because we'll get to the Bucs in a little bit. A lot of weird stuff going on, but I'll tell you the bet that I really like is the over 6.5 wins -110. I think that's almost a lock. I think they're going to finish. My ceiling is 11 wins, 11-6. My floor is 9. So obviously, I think that either way, because in my opinion, we can get to the Saints after you tell me about why you think the Saints are going to be so good. But I think that they're going to have 2 wins against the Falcons, and I think they're going to have 2 wins against the Saints because I don't think the Saints. I think the Saints are going to be in a free fall here in just a moment. But explain your take. Why do you think the Saints are going to be the second place team?
Yeah, I mean, this is my thing with the Saints is I like Jameis Winston, and I think
doesn't? He's gold.
It's true. Who doesn't like Jameis Winston? But I think obviously with Sean Payton leaving, having a head coach like that leave that's been such a staple of the entire franchise for so long is obviously going to be a difficult transition. But I like what I'm seeing out of Jameis Winston. I like where his kind of head's at and the comments that he's making. I think he has been, now having been with the Saints for a little bit, I think he's understanding the dynamics that the fan base expects to win and expects to be contenders. With Michael Thomas coming back this year, was obviously had lingering ankle injuries last year and in 2020. So hopefully if he's back at his best, they were also really aggressive in the draft. I like that the moves they made. They brought in the receiver Chris Olave and offensive tackle Trevor Penning. Olave. Yeah, sorry. And then they've also got the veterans obviously bringing in Jarvis Landry, I think was an awesome move. I think it's going to be exciting to kind of see him and Jameis Winston work together. So I just think that I think that the Saints can be an effective, kind of thorn in the side of the Bucs. And I think that's where the edge is going to come for them. I see the Bucs beating the Panthers twice in this division. And I can see the Saints beating the Bucs in New Orleans, just because I think that they can kind of be the one in the division that Tom Brady just doesn't always perform his best against. I think, but yeah, we're going to see Thomas back at an all-pro level. And I think that between him and Jameis Winston, we're going to see some really fun play.
Yeah. If you told me that they were the second team, they were a playoff team, I wouldn't be shocked. The addition of Tyrann Mathieu, Marcus May in the secondary, although Marcus May seems to have some legal issues on the horizon with a few different problems that popped up for him. But their defense, I'm not going to discredit that Dennis Allen isn't a great defensive coordinator, but the last time he was a head coach, he went 8-28. Now the talent level of that team probably obviously a lot different than this team, but until I see it, I just always have a hard time believing that a head coach can, because typically in the NFL, good coaches are good coaches. They just figure it out. They have the guys in the right spots, and they don't go 8-28. Very rarely is that the case for a really good coach. So I don't think there's enough weight being put on Sean Payton leaving, and they're treating as if he was on the staff last year, so it's going to be more of the same. I don't personally believe that. And I think that without Sean Payton there kind of guiding Jameis Winston, keeping him under control, guiding him through the reads each and every week, and guiding the game plan and play calls to keep him kind of in wraps, I think we're going to see, personally, as much as I love Jameis, I think we're going to see more interceptions, the Tampa Bay kind of wild card Jameis, where you get the big plays, but then you get the big oof moments, which will lead to a disappointing year. So that's where I fall in line more so. I think that their ceiling is the 11 wins if, that defense plays stout, if they gel really well. And, Michael Thomas is back to the Michael Thomas. Chris Olave is that deep vertical threat that they've been needing even back when Drew Brees was playing 4 or 5 years ago. And that defense is as stout as ever. So 11 wins isn't out of the realm of possibility for me, but I'm also putting their floor at around 5 wins because I do think that the wheels could fall off of this team. And without a strong leader that Jameis, can or can't be, I think that it could kind of fall off and be a disappointing season in the Bayou.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you make some great points. I think that it will be interesting because I think that there is the possibility of the franchise kind of just functioning similarly with people having been there with Sean Payton and kind of him having set the tone. But obviously it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same play call. It's not going to be the same level of maturity that we saw from Sean Payton. So it'll be interesting to see how Jameis Winston pairs with a defensive-minded head coach rather than an offensive-minded head coach. One more topic on the Saints that as a BYU alum, I just always have to talk about Taysom Hill.
Oh.
Sean Payton had a love for Taysom Hill. Sean Payton had a love for Taysom Hill, and one of my favorite things was to see the random plays that Sean Payton would throw at teams just to have Taysom Hill in there to play. So I'm just curious on do you think that Taysom Hill, obviously he's transitioning no longer at the quarterback spot, mentions of him transitioning to tight end. Do you think we're going to see Taysom Hill on the field for the Saints this year?
Yeah, and the special teams tight end sort of way. I do think it's pretty funny that Sean Payton had this belief that he could turn him into. I remember after that first year of the Taysom Hill experience that there was talks that he's better than Lamar. He's like a bigger, more physical Lamar Jackson. It's like the dude's almost 32 years old or something. Like his ceiling has already been kind of reached, and I think we saw that in the games he started as a quarterback. Wasn't ideal. So, yeah, in a special teams block a punt potentially, but I think his days of ever having shot a quarterback are long gone. Unless Sean Payton gets picked up by the Cowboys, maybe he'll bring him over.
That's what Taysom Hill can hope for.
That's right. So lastly, we finished with the Buccaneers, the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
You mentioned it in your review, kind of a very up and down off season for the Bucks. You had an almost comeback happen in January against the Los Angeles Rams, where it seemed like they're pulling a win out, Tom Brady miracle. That ends up short. Tom Brady retires shortly after. Well, it was leaked that he was retiring. He said, hold on, not so fast. And then it actually did retire a couple days later. And then 3 weeks after that, he came out of retirement. And then shortly thereafter, Bruce Arians then retires himself. And kind of all just a very strange situation. And now in the middle of Bucks camp, Tom Brady takes a 10 to 15 day, or I think it was 11-day officially hiatus. No reason really ever given. And maybe a reason shouldn't be given. If it's his personal life, even though he chooses to live in the personal or a very public life, very just kind of interesting things going on. A lot of rumors about his marriage being the problem, having family issues, Giselle not happy that he decided to play again, just various different reports. But nonetheless, like you mentioned, it's a very different Tom Brady approach to this year that we've seen in the past. Does that slow down the Bucks, or do you still put them, like many places put them, the second best bet to win the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's just hard to bet against Tom Brady. Like if he's on the field, you just can you just know that they're going to have a good offense and they're going to win games and they're going to have a winning season and most likely secure a playoff spot. And so I think that it's difficult to guess based on rumors. And so I think that what we know about the Bucs and what we know about Brady, then we can assume that they're going to win this division and they're going to be right around 13 wins and they're going to go on to the playoffs and potentially win the Super Bowl. I am not all in on the Bucs winning the Super Bowl this year, and that is based on the fact that I just don't know if Tom Brady is in the mindset of Super Bowl winning. Obviously, I think returning to the NFL, that would be his goal, to kind of add his 8th championship to his slot of championships and be able to really mark himself as go off into the sunset on his final Super Bowl. But I think that they're going to do well this year. I see them going to the to the NFC championship. I just don't know if I see them winning the Super Bowl. I think that the Bills would take it every time, but I would be hard pressed to even say that they would win the NFC championship game this year.
Yeah, I think Tom Brady looked at it, the NFC, and it definitely got weaker with some of the quarterback moves. He looked at his division with Matt Ryan even leaving, got Jameis Winston, he got Baker Mayfield. So almost a shoe-in if everything stays the same to make the playoffs. Like, their team didn't really get much worse. So I think there's a lot of, we'll get a home playoff game, thing goes our way. We can make a deep run, which I think is, right on with that. But I don't believe, it's just like, you think about everything that has gone in Brady's favor throughout the entire length of his career, spanning the last 20 plus years. You got field goals that were made for his team. You got the tuck rule that, sparked it all. You got comebacks, you got tip balls, you got all these things that'll be a 7-time Super Bowl champion. And it's just hard to see what he's brought so far this year. It's hard to see him have the juice and the want and the desire to put it in for another, we're looking at 5 months. These guys, and it's already been a month into the season and he had 11-day break. A lot of these guys, once you take a step away and think you're done with it, it's hard to mentally get back into it. And I think that's what he's starting to realize. Maybe, and there was a lot of talk with him and the Dolphins got, a first-round draft pick taken away, fined $5 million. Like, there was some severe evidence that there was tampering going on between the two parties. So there's just a lot of stuff surrounding it. That my hot take is that I believe that they're going to win. I do believe they're going to win division, but I would believe that the Panthers have a really good shot. I believe in Baker Mayfield that much and what he's going to bring culturally to the to the Panthers. And with kind of this lull and lag that's happening with the Bucs, I do think the Panthers have a really good shot of winning the division.
Yeah, and I'll say too, I think there's a couple other things that we failed to mention that are a little bit difficult for the Bucs. Starting off, Chris Godwin is obviously, he's going to be out for the first little bit of the season. I think that's going to have an impact. And then rumors even today that Rob Gronkowski is most likely going to return to the Bucs this year, which, as a side note, I watched the funniest video the other day, found out that Rob Gronkowski, when he was on the Patriots, actually got traded to the Detroit Lions.
Oh, that's a good story.
The Lions called him, when he got called and said he was traded to the Lions, he said, "No, I'm retired."
Yeah, the Patriots were telling him that they're going to trade him. He said, "Don't tell him I'm retired."
Yeah. And so then he never ended up going to the Lions and played with the Patriots again. And so that was one of my favorite stories. It's just such a Rob Gronkowski move to be like,
sure,
we're 5 days away from first week of the season, and he still is undecided if he's going to show up. So I do think that there is some things that are up in the air there that I think we're going to see the Bucs get off to a slow start. They're playing at Dallas week 1, then they're playing at the Saints, then they're playing against the Packers, and then against the Chiefs. So I think obviously that's not the hardest schedule in football, but I do think that with the kind of up and down that we've been seeing from the Bucs, the new change of head coach, with Tom Brady being out, maybe he's not able to have gotten the same level of team groupthink that he's been able to accomplish in the past. And so I think we will see a slow start from them. I don't think it'd be outlandish to say we could even see them going 1-3. But then with Tom Brady being able to pick it up in the latter half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, because I think back to when he initially switched teams and during the COVID year. I mean, every week they were together running routes. He was with Godwin, with Mike Evans, with his tight ends and going through the offense. And I don't think that really happened much this year. Maybe they didn't post about it on social media, so it wasn't as much to see. But he did a few different golf tournaments. He started a new company, brand. And it just started to seem like he was shifting into a different phase of his life, and then the report came out that he signed I think it was a 7-year, $75 million with Fox to be the 1A color guy whenever he does hang it up. It's just a contract and money hanging out in the future. And it's just like, it seemed like he was ready to do that and everything was setting up that way. But being the competitor he is, he just, I can still throw the ball as good as I could when I was 20. Why would I walk away, throwing, 5,000 yards last year and being in consideration for MVP at 44? So what's it stay, it's sort of 45, probably great things. But as you mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a slow start, and the team just kind of withers away because, Todd Bowles, did good things in New York, but there were obviously some down years too. I don't think he ever made the playoffs. So there are some questions on, is he a quality head coach? Great coordinator, had a great Super Bowl game plan against Patrick Mahomes when they won it, but is he a great head coach? And that is yet to be seen. And I guess we'll find out this year. But again, a lot of people can look really great when they're playing alongside Tom Brady.
Yeah, but he makes anybody look good.
My last point on that is that a lot of players have a hard time leaving gracefully. And I think that's what blew a lot of people away when Tom Brady retired because of the year he had last year, the 5,000 yards and yada, yada, yada. And so it's just kind of is history repeating itself. He had an opportunity to walk away healthy, had an opportunity to walk away with on the top of his game, achieving things unimaginable, but couldn't walk away. So he's coming back. And could this be the year that it finally is? Probably should have played 1 year too long.
Yeah. But it also just adds that testament of like, you've just watched one of the greatest football player of all time. You can just see how difficult it is to walk away from the game, especially when it's what you've done your whole life. It's basically your entire identity. And so I think it's a little heartwarming to see how difficult it is for him to give it up because it means so much to him, just like it means so much to everyone who has fallen in love with his play.
That's what's crazy. He's approaching playing in the NFL over half his life at the age of 45. That's
insanity.
I don't think we'll ever see anyone like it again. So, I'm happy that we have another year of it. Hopefully it's a good year. Maybe we have 2 years. It's just, you never really know. But I think there's a lot of questions on the table that maybe will be answered by week 3 when it's like, oh, the 3-0, Tom Brady's look really good. It's things are rolling in Tampa. We're kind of dumb to doubt it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, any other thoughts on the division?
What's your ceiling for the Bucs?
With the Tom Brady team, 14, 13 wins. The floor 9. I think that's probably where I put it for him.
Yep. Right there with you. So no longer hot takes on this division. I think this is pretty much agreed upon by most people in the NFL.
Yeah. I think our only difference is where we think the Saints, the Saints are a sleeper team for a lot of people, and I just don't get it. I don't buy it, but I guess I could be really wrong. But
well, just you wait. They're going to have an awesome year, and then they're going to lose to the Vikings in the playoffs. So
I could get behind that. That's the recipe for success right there.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thank you for tuning in. The next division and the last division, the AFC South. Not a lot to talk about there, but we will anyway.